Good morning. Welcome to Cedar Lane Unitarian Universalist Church to this service of remembrance and celebration of the life of Catharine Schuler. If you're joining us this morning online, please share in the chat your name and where you're joining us from today. And if this is your first time attending a memorial service at Cedar Lane or at a Unitarian Universalist congregation, I want you to know that we are a part of the Congregational Protestant lineage of Christian congregations, but that more than a century ago, we decided that we would rather build our religious community on the promises we make about how we respect and treat one another and hold each other's beliefs, rather than on uniformity of belief. We are a non-creedal religious community, and we honor religious and spiritual wisdom and truth wherever we find it, in the great religious and sacred traditions of the world, in nature, and in our own hearts. And when we grieve, we use our memorial services as occasions to celebrate the life of our loved ones, rather than as occasions of proclamation of faith. We honor the fact that each of us has brought our own spiritual understanding of the mysteries of life and death and the interval in between, and will find consolation in these understandings as we will work our way through loss. So, we gather from different places and different faiths and different beliefs, united by the wisdom and custom of people of all ages. The various faiths that sustain us and nurture us separately come together today in a harmony of remembrance and celebration that acts across all creeds and assures us of the permanence of human goodness and hope. Today, we shall celebrate Catharine's living, and we shall grieve her passing, because we know the truth of the poet William Blake's words, "Joy and woe are woven fine. Under every grief and pine runs a joy with silken twine. It is right, it should be so. We were made for joy and woe." We come in sorrow, confronting the fact that life ends. This is the condition of our birth, that at the end of the road, near or far, stands always our death. All generations have had to bear this heavy truth. The need that is upon us is the need to accept both the glory and the tragedy of life, its holiness and its limits. But we also come together with gratitude. Gratitude for having known Catharine, for being touched by her friendship, for being influenced by her work as a teacher and an artist, for being inspired by her passion for justice and equity, and for having the privilege of having journeyed on life's journey with her. And by remembering Catharine as she was, fully, quirks, joys, and challenges, and by recalling some of her qualities, by honoring the values and convictions which guided her life, some of her enduring nobility flows into us, that we ourselves might be more noble in days ahead. So we have come together. It is good that we have come together, because a human life is sacred in its being born, in its living, and also in its dying. Welcome.
As is the custom of our faith tradition, we open this sacred time with the lighting of the chalice. Today is the flame of memory and hope that we carry within us as we honor Catharine. We acknowledge that a human life is sacred in its beginning and in its ending. As Flo and Bill Schuler kindle the memorial flame, I invite us to speak the chalice lighting words in unison. We light this chalice in loving memory of our beloved friend and spiritual companion, Catharine Schuler, and in tribute to the love a single life can inspire. May the chalice remind us of the extravagant gift of life. May it signify the community we create. And thank you.
My name is Jane Donworth. I was a colleague of Catharine's at the University of Maryland and a friend for over 30 years. We shared a love of the poetry of Mary Oliver, and so I read When Death Comes. When death comes, like the hungry bear in autumn. Oh. Now I have to look it up, sorry. When death comes, like the hungry bear in autumn, when death comes and takes all the bright coins from his purse to buy me and snaps the purse shut. When death comes like the measles pox, when death comes like an iceberg between the shoulder blades, I want to step through the door full of curiosity, wondering what is it going to be like, that cottage of darkness. And therefore, I look upon everything as brotherhood and sisterhood, and I look upon time as no more than an idea, and I consider eternity as another possibility. And I think of each life as a flower, as common as a field daisy and as singular, and each name a comfortable music in the mouth, tending, as all music does, towards silence. And each body a lion of courage and something precious to the earth. When it's over, I want to say, all my life, I was a bride, married to amazement. I was the bridegroom, taking the world into my arms. When it's over, I don't want to wonder if I have made of my life something particular and real. I don't want to find myself sighing and frightened or full of argument. I don't want to end up simply having visited this world.
It was beautiful, as long as it lasted, the journey of my life. I have no regrets whatsoever, save the pain I'll leave behind. Those dear hearts who love and care, and the heavy with sleep ever moist eyes. The smile in spite of a lump in the throat and the strings pulling at the heart and soul. The strong arms that held me up when my own strength let me down. Each morsel that I was fed with was full of love. At every turning of my life, I came across good friends, friends who stood by me, even when the time raced me by. Farewell, farewell, my friends. I smile and bid you goodbye. No, shed no tears, for I need them not. All I need is your smile. If you feel sad, do think of me, for that's what I'll like. When you live in the hearts of those you love, remember, then you never die. Join us in singing hymn number 21, For the Beauty of the Earth.
Well, that was some robust singing here. All right. Feels like church this morning. And you made it through the UU version as well. For those of you who are familiar with it, I'm sure the words may have tripped you up a little. That's right. Well, we are also honoring Catharine's deep engagement in religious humanism this morning. And that hymn is a good tribute to her convictions and beliefs. The details of a person's life can never encompass the meanings of the life, but the details are a place to begin. Our friend Catharine Schuler was born on May 19, 1952, to Charles William C.W. Schuler and Nancy Schuler in Dixon, Illinois. She had two older brothers, William and Michael, and Bill is here with us with Flo. They grew up on a small farm in a house full of books that inspired them to become avid readers, good writers, and lifelong learners. The family moved to Naples, Florida when Catharine was 15. After graduating high school, Catharine attended Eckerd College in St. Petersburg, where she got her bachelor's degree in theater and performance. In college, Catharine worked with the famous Oslo Repertory Theater in Sarasota and was very involved in many performances there. Catharine did graduate work at Emerson College in Boston and then later earned her doctorate in academic theater from Florida State University. She served as a faculty member in the Department of Theater at the University of Maryland, College Park, and later joined the Department of Women, Gender, and Sexuality Studies in 2011 until her retirement when she became Professor Emerita. She served as editor of the Theater Journal, a leading peer-reviewed journal on theater studies for many years. She authored two books, Theater and Identity in Imperial Russia and Women in Russian Theater, The Actress in the Silver Age. She co-edited a book of essays on the impact of feminism and theater and published numerous articles on women and theater. She received numerous awards and honors, including the Bernard Hewitt Award for Best Book in Theater History. She served as a fellow at the Wilson Center in Washington, D.C., and also received a Fulbright Fellowship. At UMD, Catharine taught many courses, including Women and Comedy, History, Theory, and Practice, and From Lenin to Pussy Riot, Gendering Post-Soviet Russia. We had some wonderful conversations about that course when she was offering it. Catharine was known for being an innovative and rather demanding teacher who challenged her students to think critically. She had an incredible ability to bring out the best in her students. One of her students recalled, and I quote, "Dr. Schuler was a fantastic teacher and mentor. She held students to high standards and was ready to be there for those who were wanting more opportunities to explore their passions. I wouldn't have been able to study all the varied topics and specialized areas I wanted to research without her guiding presence." Growing up, Catharine had attended a lay-led Unitarian fellowship in Dixon, Illinois, and later as a youth in Naples, Florida. She joined Cedar Lane in 2011 and became actively involved in our LGBTQ and environmental justice ministry teams. She cherished her many friendships with Cedar Lane members in small groups, dinner discussion groups, and adult education programs. Catharine loved biking. She biked to work and to church and everywhere. She loved running and walking her dogs in her Silver Spring neighborhood. She enjoyed visiting museums, attending theater performances, and cooking and eating vegetarian and vegan food. And she loved dogs. They were a big part of her life. She particularly loved corgis and dachshunds. She was passionate about animal rights and was an animal rescue advocate. And Catharine loved hats. She had a huge collection of them from all over the world, and she wore them all the time, usually color coordinated with whatever attire that she was wearing. That was important. In 2021, Catharine was diagnosed with a rare form of appendix cancer. After undergoing chemo and immunotherapy treatments, she suspended treatment and entered hospice care earlier this summer. Catharine was hospitalized after suffering a bad fall in early November. She died on November 7th, 2022. She was 70. Catharine was preceded in death by her father, Charles William. She's survived by her mother, Nancy, her siblings, Bill and Michael and their families, her dogs, Eiley and Mika, and her many family of friends. She will be missed.
This reflection is from Catharine's mother, Nancy. Kathy was my third child, born May 19th, 1952. She had two older brothers, Michael A. and William Elliott, all born within 3+ years. During their early years, we lived on 2 farms in northern Illinois, although we did not have a farming background. The 3 children were each other's playmates in that era, although at school age, they attended public schools in nearby town of Dixon. Kathy was in public school in Illinois until age 15, when we moved to Naples, Florida, where she went to high school and then to college in St. Petersburg. She enjoyed a long career teaching Russian women's theater, followed by women's studies in recent years. She was well-versed in speaking Russian and enjoyed associating with others with similar talents. Catharine always had a family of dogs as companions and many friends and family. She and I traveled together on several occasions to Europe and especially Finland, Russia, Sweden, Denmark, and Great Britain. And now we'll have Sharon join us.
So I'm not Sharon. Sharon can't join us. But I'm going to read a remembrance that she sent. Sharon is a stand-up comic as well as a professor. And so this is, Catharine asked her to read something, to say something inappropriate at the funeral, so. Well, it's pretty mild. So in Sharon's voice, before I begin, I want to express my gratitude to Bill and Flo for their unceasing care of Catharine during her most difficult days, and many thanks to me, and she hopes that I will forgive her one day for making her read this. Catharine was a force of nature. I know this because after I quit performing in the dinner theater circuit, I spent most of the 90s slowly pursuing a PhD in theater history at the University of Maryland. I was Catharine's assistant for most of that time, helping her in her brutally difficult theater history and gender and performance courses. Now, it took a while for me to adapt to what a former student called Catharine's wit and expertise. I would add to that an honesty that had a real bite. Catharine and I were opposite in many ways. This is how I put it, and Catharine agreed. Catharine was an entirely good person, but she wasn't very nice. I am an entirely nice person, but I'm not very good. Slowly, we adjusted to each other. I loved to make her laugh. That cackle was one of my favorite sounds in the world. And she loved to continually remind me that because our birthdays were only 6 months apart, she would always be younger than me. Catharine and I were involved in a raft of creative projects, but events in 2 major productions really cinched our relationship. The first show I was in was a feminist remake of Dr. Faustus. On opening night, as Dr. June Faustus, I began a famous Faustian monologue to which we had added feminist ideology. I don't remember the line, but it elicited a loud booing from a gentleman faculty member. I stopped my speech and locked eyes with the offender and said, "Oh, sir, this is going to be a long night for you." I can still hear Catharine laughing from the back of the house. The second production was one in which I played a crazed Cherry K businesswoman who poked mascara wands at bunny puppets while assuring callers on the phone that our cosmetics were not tested on animals. This show was an adaptation by Catharine and Susan Leonardi of a popular 18th century play called The London Merchant. As Catharine mused over the title, I suggested one to make her laugh. She loved it, and I think it showed her willingness to make fun of her own feminist excesses. Instead of The London Merchant, it was The London Merchant Person. That's sort of like the Department of Redundancy Department. I have so many memories of those days in Maryland after Catharine and I had sporadic contact during my years playing professor in Indiana. We reconnected often when my husband Ronnie and I moved to Chicago in 2014. We stayed with each other several times, and this last October in 2021, I spent a month in DC, and I was able to see Catharine for 3 long lunches. She was in the midst of chemotherapy, but doing pretty well. Now, I promised Catharine to be inappropriate. I do want to also mention that she was always, despite being in excellent financial shape, very tight. I mean, last October, I bought her lunch at a stylish restaurant in Maryland. Then she bought me a kind of vegan takeout at a cheap dive. Then I bought her a great meal at Kramer's bookstore in DuPont Circle. That cheapskate still owes me a lunch. I had wonderful long conversations with Catharine these last few months. She was off chemo and in a kind of honeymoon period where she felt better. My job was to make her laugh, and she really kept me on my toes working at it. So Catharine, in my mind's eye, I see you with every dog you ever cared for. You are still incorrigible, but never uncorgiable. And you are cackling as you remind me once again that you will always and forever be younger than me. I love you. I think Sharon is watching.
Next, we'll have someone speak for Sarah Singer.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Elizabeth Joyce, and I'm a recent acquaintance of Catharine, and a very fortunate one who, through her good friend Arlene Kobe, joined a wonderful lunch bunch, which Catharine participated in until very recently. These are the words of Sarah Singer, and it is a beautiful tribute. I really enjoyed reading it for the first time. Catharine was a charming, unusual, and complicated person. Above all, I thought of her as a theater-going, beer-drinking, debate-holding, dog-loving friend. Here are some of the things that I'm really going to miss about her. First, her laugh. She was a great storyteller who laughed fully and often. When she was really amused, she'd lean over and clap her hands, often at my expense. She could always see the humor in things. Next, her affection for animals. Catharine's dogs were the loves of her life, and she maintained a vegan diet as part of her commitment to animal rights. Admittedly, sometimes I ordered meat at restaurants when we would go out to dinner just to annoy her. Her love of Apple products and new technologies, except for TVs. After owning every iPad on the market, Catharine only purchased a TV 2 or 3 years ago. During the COVID pandemic, while everyone else was mindlessly watching whatever the streaming service algorithms pulled up, Catharine reminded us of the importance of WETA, which is the leading public broadcasting station in the nation's capital. Also, her teaching. Catharine knew how to invite students into a range of subjects and wasn't afraid of assigning controversial material. When I was her TA, sometimes our students would be fuming with righteous anger even before the class began. Catherine took that as a compliment. Her wry commentary. Catherine had a lot of expertise and therefore a lot of opinions. A few years ago, she suggested that I might have to marry my now husband because he was starting to understand feminism and was good at ironing and fixing things around the house. Update, it was good advice. Catherine was not afraid of conflict, and I could be sure that she was always giving me her honest opinion. As such, I will continue making my department chair's life very difficult in her honor. But most of all, I will miss Catherine's generosity of mind and spirit. No matter how many questionable decisions I made or how much I panicked, Catherine was always there to support me. I will always miss her.
Hi, I am Flo Schuler, Catherine's sister-in-law. I brought this bear with me because, as you saw, if you looked outside, Catherine, she loved dogs, but she said her spirit animal was a bear. And she loved bears, and my daughter-in-law makes bears. And on our last visit, we were hurrying past their house, and she had us to stop because she made this bear for Catherine. And Catherine had asked her to make a bear previously, which said the end or not, and was a black bear. But Julie decided that Catherine needed this bear, and it says on it, "You are loved." And that's what I want to talk about. Catherine was greatly loved. Over the years, Bill and I and our sons have not often got to spend a lot of time with Catherine because when we did, she lived in one part of the country and we in the other. We were separated by miles. But when we did meet together, okay, thank you, the boys wanted everyone to know that she always made them laugh, and that they always enjoyed being with her and enjoyed being with her as adults too. Now, you all talked about the Catherine that you've known for years and years and years. I need to share about the Catherine in this last year, which is not quite as funny, but it was Catherine, and I think you need to hear about it. The last year of her life was very difficult. But I am so glad that we had the privilege of being able to share it with her. Of course, we all hated that she had cancer and that it was so rare and basically untreatable. But good did come from it. She being so very sick and needing so much help meant that Catherine and I became very close. We would start hugging one another. Catherine was not a huggy person. I don't know how many of you she ever hugged, but we started hugging one another. You know, when you're facing death so close, sometimes things change in your life. We started saying, "I love you," to one another. And Catherine would look at me and say, "I really do love you." Sometimes she would ask me to come and sit with her and just hold her hand. These were tough times for her. This is a different woman than you all knew. Sometimes she'd ask me to just rub her back. I was helping her do things that she could not do for herself, things that I won't even mention here because it would embarrass her. But she was so amazing. To suddenly have two people living in your house full time when she lived with just 2 dogs for years is not easy. But Catherine did it well. And also, this year, Bill and I got to meet and become friends with some of you, her friends, which we never would have had happen. Bill and I were led to a church here in Silver Spring that has been a great blessing to us. Through the strength we've gained from fellowshipping with those dear people, we have been better able to serve and take care of Catharine. Catharine discovered that many people were praying for her. Most who never met her, and that knowledge profoundly impacted her, that people she didn't even know were praying for her. She would say, I don't understand it, but I'll take it. And she'd say, please tell them thank you. Thank you. People in Indiana, people in all over praying for her. Catharine discovered that many people cared about her. And she saw that in the way you all were reaching out to her too. She would often remind me that spiritually we were in opposite camps. I am a believer in Jesus Christ. She called herself a skeptic. Given her feminist leanings, she told me that what she really wanted was for God to be a woman. I didn't understand why that would make a difference. But anyway, I told her more than once that we were with her because she had physical needs 24 hours a day. And that was true. Many nights I stayed up to take care of her. And we wanted to try to meet those needs. In doing that, our hope was that she would experience an unconditional, no strings attached kind of love from us. Something that without the cancer, we would never have been able to give her. When Abby gave us a list of possible readings for today, one was from 1 Corinthians. This is what this universal truth says. If I speak with the tongues of mortals and of angels, but do not have love, I am a noisy gong or a clanging cymbal. And if I have prophetic powers and understand all the mysteries and all knowledge, and if I have all faith so as to remove mountains, but do not have love, I am nothing. If I give away all that I have, and if I hand over my body to be burned, but do not have love, I gain nothing. Love is patient. Love is kind. Love is not envious or boastful or arrogant or rude. It does not insist on its own way. It is not irritable or resentful. It does not rejoice at wrongdoings, but rejoices with the truth. Love bears all things, believes all things, hopes all things, endures all things. Love never ends. When I was a child, I spoke like a child. I thought like a child. I reasoned like a child. When I became an adult, I gave up childish ways. For now we see in a mirror dimly, but then face to face. Now I know in part. Then I shall know fully, even as I have been fully known. So now faith, hope, and love abide. But the greatest of these is love. Love. Catharine has been loved by many, but she had yet to know the love of God. When she'd bring it up, she would ask, well, if God exists, why would he even care about me when there are so many other more pressing needs in the world? Actually, it is kind of mind-blowing to think that God is interested in little old Catharine or little old you or little old me, but he is. At the end of June, I'm glad you're all sitting down, Catharine asked me to buy her a Bible, but not a big one like mine. No. So I got her one that had small print, and she started reading it. And she had questions, and we had some discussions, but they were always initiated by her. Then she asked me for a Bible with larger print. She got that and also one that had study and historical notes. And then she said, what I really want is a Bible in which I could journal. Does this sound like the Catharine you knew? If one of something was good, more is better. And if you can write in it, well, that's even better. When Catherine left the hospital on July 3rd, she was only 79 pounds. Having been diagnosed with stage 4's terminal cancer, she chose to be on hospice. So that meant all chemo and tests stopped. Now at home, we could work together on getting her stronger and getting her to feeling better. The further away she was from chemo, the better she felt. Nausea was going away, her taste buds were returning, as was her strength, and she was gaining back some weight, some mobility, and independence. She even talked about wanting to take another trip to Finland and flying first class this time. And now, and I know this is a shock to some of you, but she began to put aside her vegan ways and ate fish and meat for the protein they provided, but she also enjoyed the taste. I mean, when she sent me a text and said, "Would you please buy some steaks for us?" I was pretty shocked, I have to say. Well, Catherine, as you would expect, was frustrated that she could not do what she used to do. She was often so tired after an hour visit or a phone call with some of you that she would need a lengthy nap and go to bed early. But what she could do was read, which she did a lot. She usually had 2 or 3 books going at the same time, plus the New York Times and the New Yorker. But also during this time, Catherine was reading the Bible every day. And she decided to try an online Bible study on the book of Daniel. I know all of you are thinking, this is Catherine? Yes, it was. She was quite funny because although she made a point of reminding us that she was a Unitarian and a skeptic in this Bible study, she was often the first one to answer the questions. And sometimes the facilitator had to ask her to wait and give others a chance to answer. Catherine and I didn't talk much about the Bible study itself, but loving history, she was impressed that Daniel prophesied accurately about things that happened more than 100 years before he died. She read the Bible with the heart of a skeptic who was searching for truth. I believe when we search for truth, we will find it in the one who is truth. Catherine told me more than once that she knew belief in Jesus had to be by faith. We actually did talk about this, and again, it was at her initiation. Certainly, death was on her mind a lot, and what she read in the Bible was making her think about what happens after we die. So, what happened her last day at home? Our best guess is this. She, knowing that the hospice nurse was coming for a visit, wanted to unlock the front door, as she always did for her. She put Mika, her black dog, in the upstairs bedroom and somehow fell on the stairs before going to unlock the door. When the nurse could not get in, she went to the neighbor who has a key, and they found Catherine on the floor with a severe head injury. She was taken to the hospital, where she passed 4 days later. I just read this the other day. Good friends are the rare jewels of life, difficult to find and impossible to replace. You are those rare jewels in Catherine's life. Thank you for being with us today.
So I'm Catherine's older brother. My younger brother is Michael, and Michael may be tuning in, I don't know, but Abby is interned with my brother Michael. And so, I can't say a lot about my sister because, for one thing, I'm really battling some depression over that. And I don't want to explain that because it can't be explained. But it is part of the mourning process, I'm sure, and I hope it will pass to something more constructive. Catherine and I we were always kind of friends, you know what I mean? It was sort of like on and off, but she would be friends with my brother, she would be friends with me, but not at the same time. And being male, of course, I had a little disadvantage. And being older was an additional disadvantage, but I certainly wouldn't claim to be wiser than my sister or my mother or my brother. Different, that I would say. I was going to, the one thing that I did not do a lot of hands-on with Catharine. It would have been inappropriate, it would have been embarrassing, but my wife related to her on female to female, and also in a very intimate way that no one that I know of in our family or anybody else has ever known her that way, and cared for her in that way. Really, I was on call being the doctor, but most of the time she called Flo, and sometimes quite loudly. But I actually gave her one of those cowbells, that you get in the store. It says "more cowbell" on it. But she never rang it once, so she always would rely on my wife to do all the little intimate and sometimes ugly things that had to be done. And she would say, "Well, no one else has volunteered to do it." And I said, "Well, Catherine, I don't think anybody else could do it. I couldn't have done that for her on that level. I would have been too embarrassed. And it's not hard to embarrass me, believe me. But the one thing that I did contribute, I think, for a while there, I took the opportunity to pull out my recorders, which I had not used for a while, and I would play upstairs at night. There was one morning, she said, or one evening, she said, "Isn't it too late to be playing your recorder?" And I said, "I'm not." She had heard it, but not from me, And it was strange, but she did like what I played, and I'm just going to give a short introduction. What I play best is Renaissance music. I don't know if any of you are familiar with it, but it's the jazz of the Middle Ages. Very polyphonic, polyrhythmic, and being a drummer, I kind of adapted to that as being a personal favorite. It's better played with other people, but I've never had really the opportunity living in a very remote, relatively remote area. But I'm going to refer to the music a little bit like the Goldberg Variations. Anybody familiar with those? Bach. The Goldberg Variations are one of my favorites. It has several versions, and the Goldberg Variations were written for a prince of some sort, as happened often in those days, and it was meant to be played on a harpsichord. It was meant to be played as the prince was going to sleep. And so it was like a little night music, except not for Mozart. But the pieces, each of them stand alone, but they are meant to be played in sequence. I'm going to only give a short sequence by a particular favorite of mine, Dufay, who wrote a lot of sacred music in the 15th century. I don't know how well I will do. I am really not used to playing in public except for in front of my sister. And she loved it, and that was where we really related, I think, maybe at the deepest. I'm not sure, but certainly discussion was not really much of an option for many things, but the music we did share, and Catharine loved music. I'm sorry we don't have any of her favorite Bonnie Raitt songs for today, but we do have me, and so.
I feel her spirit will lead you through.
Mm-hmm. Well, yes, I think so too. To be honest, she didn't really exactly know what she was listening to. But nonetheless, you know, when words fail, use music, as somebody said. Probably a musician. I'm going to start with something that you probably all know. I don't know the words to it, but it's just a simple rendition of A Gift to Be Simple, Shaker. These are all titled, but unless you know Latin, you may as well forget it. My numbers, I get mixed up here. This is one last one. I'm just playing it because I have played it a lot, but it's the same time period.
Thank you for that. Thank you, Bill. Now, as your spirit moves you to do so, I invite just a couple of people to come up for brief living memories of Catharine. If a few of her friends or someone would like to speak for a brief memory.
Well, good morning, everybody. I'm Donald Moore. They can't hear me? My voice?
We're on the internet.
Oh, yes. Whoop. Have to get a new one. Is that better? So, generally, that's my entry to most events. I'm sure Catherine would enjoy that. I met Catherine through our Word Wonks Club, Wonks, W-N-K-S, and it was hard to meet her because whenever we planned an event together, she was always busy on her bike ride and couldn't make it there in time. So I remember one instance we met at the Quarter Deck in Arlington, which is a place that had seafood and crab legs. Huh? Louder? Okay. And she wasn't able to join us because she had too long a bike ride that she had to complete. And let's see, what else? I had a touch with her during the theater experience because I was a volunteer at the First Stage Theater that's in Tyson's Corner. And she came to one of their performances because she was going to be an instructor for some kind of training that they were trying to involve at that week. I've always enjoyed that theater because it's a beginning place for actors that are getting into the field of acting and theater arts. As a member of the Word Wonks Club, this happens to be my assigned week, and I made an attempt this morning to honor her through some Russian words, which I didn't explain, so I think the members of the club are wondering, what is Don trying to do? Well, a lot of those Russian words were single letters, and then I would explain what the letter meant. And I think that confused some people because Eileen, she gave me the benefit of explaining that to me. So I'm on the spot for two reasons. Now, I'm trying to think of some other remembrances I had with her. I do remember that she went to Russia for the Olympics when it was held there, and she talked about that. So I didn't know about their background in that respect, and that was something that. Oh, you want me to get up right here? Okay. Okay, I got it. So that was an interesting revelation. I've been very impressed with the presentations this morning and what everybody had to offer. She certainly was a dynamic individual. And I wanted to go ahead and finish up with this remembrance by Pat Musburger. And she says, back then, Catherine was called Kathy with her experience. In 1980, Kathy was a second-year PhD student at Florida State, and I was just starting in the MFA directing program. At the fall orientation, Kathy spoke to explain the PhD program and then launched into a critique of the school's choice of productions for that year. No female playwrights, too few roles for women, etc., and much to the chagrin of the male dean. I was smitten by this short lady's chutzpah. A week later, I saw her in the local theater hang out reading, drinking a beer, and smoking a pipe. I knew I had to get to know this more interesting gnome, and I did. One of our colleagues later called us a feminist cabal, which delighted us, of course. Our many adventures, including driving her VW Bug from Tallahassee to New York City for the ATA convention because back then Kathy would not fly. We walked up 5 flights to our hotel room because she wouldn't get in an elevator. I gradually got used to her slower body rhythm, which to this day my husband and I refer to as the Schuler pace. But those unhurried moves were in direct contrast to the quickness of her mind. After 3 years at FSU, I moved to Texas and then eventually to Seattle. Kathy moved on to teach in Georgia and finally D.C. But over the years, we continued to be close through long phone calls, letters, and many cross-country visits. In 42 years of friendship, I don't think we ever had a disagreement or got angry with one another, though we were quite different in so many ways. Kathy Schuler made me a better person intellectually, physically, and altruistically. You've probably heard the expression, be kind, be the kind of person your dog thinks you are. Well, Kathy was that kind of person. I will miss talking to her, hearing her laugh, and having her challenge my thinking. But I am so grateful to have had her in my life for so long. Goodbye, old friend, and thanks for everything. Now, I have a couple of requests that I'd like to see a response to. How many of you here in attendance are involved with theater? See a show of hands? That's good to see. Now, how many of you here are in the Wonks Club? So you see, she was, I can't think of the term, but her dynamic personality indicates that she was involved in many walks and many different groups in life. And that's a very commendable life experience to be able to honor. So I think that's pretty much that I have to offer, and I thank you.
Hello. My name is Matthew. My pronouns are they, them. I met Catharine at the University of Maryland when I was an undergraduate student. Now, she mostly taught the PhD and grad students, but once a semester she would teach an undergraduate theater history course. And this theater history course was the history of the European avant-garde of the early 20th century. So futurism, expressionism, Dada, things like that. She had a reputation at the university for being a very tough teacher, and I had a reputation of being a very poor student. And it was suggested that I not take this class because I would not pass. But the subject really did interest me, and so I decided to give it a go. I loved this class. This class changed my life. And the one memory I'll share is she had a final project in which we were to be assigned a certain movement that we had studied throughout the semester and to create a short performance that was inspired by that movement. So me and a small group of very close friends who were also in this class got assigned to the Dada anti-art movement. And if you know anything about Dada, it's a lot of rule breaking. It's a lot of creating things to instigate and to kind of turn things on their head. And so I was very interested in how we would take this assignment to heart. And I met with her and I said, in her office during office hours, which I took full advantage of more than any other professor. And I said, how are we supposed to do this if, how far are we supposed to go with this? How hard can we push? I said, are there any rules to this? And she gave me 2 rules. She said, 1, you can't use any live animals. And I said, that checks out, that's fine. 2, no nudity. And I said, okay, those are the rules, those are the sets. So I brought this information back to my other group partners, another 4 of them, and we decided that the best thing to do in honor of Dada was to break that rule. Yeah. And so we kept our project very hush-hush until the day of our performance, and we gathered the entire class into this very small little black box theater. And in the middle of the performance, I got naked. And I stood in front of her, and I proclaimed that I was Catharine Schuler. And she, in the middle of the performance, said, no, you're not. I'm Catharine Schuler. And we got into this debate with me naked on stage in front of her. I am Catharine Schuler. No, I am Catharine Schuler. And it went on for quite some time. We finished our performance, and we're waiting to see if this risk had paid off, or whether or not I was going to live up to my reputation of being a bad student. And the silence, and then her cackle. She cackled for what felt like eternity, and we knew that we had honored her in breaking this rule. Long story short, the same group of students then, after graduating, formed a Pointless Theater Company, who she continued to support through up until the end of her life. I see that she included us in asking for donations, which is very heartwarming. And you should know that myself and about 20 other artists who continue to make art today are all Catharine Schuler. Thank you.
That is just, that's wonderful. I feel like, there's nothing else to be said at that point. There are lots of things to be said, and I think that Catharine would say, we're good. We're good. All of those who we have known and loved are inextricably woven into our lives. Like tributaries merging into a stream or a river, winding their way down a mountain, and underground springs through which they are unseen. They cleanse and renew the waters. So it is with the loving relationships that we have. They are just like these springs, just like these waters. As they have joined in our lives, their love and their gifts to us become a part of who we are, blended imperceptibly through the ripples and the rapids of our lives. All of those in our lives no longer here in form are made present again when we love one another well. There is but one source of life, and we are all carriers of its flow. Let us give thanks for the love and light of Catharine, and let us remember the words of Elizabeth Kubler-Ross. All those we have known and loved become a part of us. Catharine is a part of each one of you now and forevermore. So you are Catharine Schuler.
Catharine is a part of each and every one of us. She is still alive in each of us, the pieces of her, the blessings and the challenges, the gifts and the quirks that are imprinted on our hearts remain. The love and the cackle, the laughter, the incandescent teacher, the brilliant scholar, the holy curiosity and her acerbic wit, the passion for justice and liberation, the deep love for dogs and animal advocacy, this and so much more are still a part of who we are. So let us continue to tend to these relationships to these memories, let us continue to gather as family and as a community of friends and tell our Catharine stories, tell our Catharine lessons, tell our children, our friends. This is the part of the meaning of eternal life. Catharine is immortal and lives in all of us. We see her face, feel her spirit. What she animates in us touches us all. All the love we create is still here. All the memories are still here. She lives on in our hearts because she has touched and transformed our lives. So let us turn inward with gratitude and thanksgiving. Let us give thanks for every gift Catharine gave us that brought us joy, hope, and strength of heart. Let us give thanks for Catharine's love that she shared so generously with all of us. Let us remember that it is because we knew, loved, struggled with, and delighted in Catharine that we feel such sorrow for her death. But our joy came first. And because of that joy, we feel sorrow now. Let us depart, remembering that we're all connected and our strength is the strength of the many. And though death has severed the physical cord, our memories and love for Catharine remain strong. In her death, let us find one another. In death, the web of life is never weakened, but made stronger. May it be so. I invite us to rise once again, in body or in spirit, to sing Amazing Grace, number 205 in the gray hymnal.
We're going to do this recorder added.
Our words of benediction are from an unknown author. When I die, if you need to weep, cry for your sibling walking the street beside you. And when you need me, put your arms around anyone and give them what you need to give me. I want to leave you something better than words or sounds. Look for me in the people I have known and loved. And if you cannot give me away, at least let me live in your eyes and not in your mind. You can love me by letting hands touch hands, by letting bodies touch bodies, and by letting go of children that need to be free. Love doesn't die, people do. So when all that's left of me is love, give me away. Go in peace, friends. Go making peace, living fiercely and loving mightily and bowing to the mystery. May it be so. Thank you.